getting to the point, it's an irrational market.
Yeah.
It's not a rational market. A rational market's when you're looking at yields, these measurements.
You can get some expectations,
metrics.
right? And projections, right?
But it's not numbers driven.
Yeah.
So
but still not too many lands anyway, so you cannot pre-plan like how it will be developed. Yeah.
Say what's beyond the number, what's the opportunity. If I only look at numbers, I'm blinded.
Yeah,
because I'm going to look at the numbers, I'm going to get confused. If I'm a developer, we always tell developers one thing: do something separate. Be brave. Be bold. If you only follow the numbers, the data from AI, you'd never do anything different.
Of course.
Why did you buy in that project? I think that's the connection which developers sometimes have to understand is what's that connection from a salesperson or from a designer and what clicks and why are they buying a product? It's not just price.
Hi everyone, today we have another serene podcast. I am super happy today because I have very, very famous guest is Bill Barnett, C9 Hotelworks. Bill, thank you for coming
Thank you for having me today. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm famous, but it's
thank
you for having me.
I think your reputation and everyone know you in Phuket for sure, but I think in Southeast Asia. Yeah, but first of all, I would like to speak for the audience that maybe don't know you, right? Can you a little bit introduce yourself, like where you originally come from and how you came to Asia, actually?
Sure. I came to Asia in 1985.
Wow.
It's a long time ago. So I moved from the mainland. I was working in hotels, and I was living in Hawaii. And I came to Asia, and I started thinking, where should I move? And I found an opportunity in Papua New Guinea.
It's similar, like you feel Hawaii and
I moved to New Guinea. I moved to New Guinea as my first stop in Asia, and kept moving further. But I went into adventure tourism, and I worked there doing safaris, doing whitewater rafting. Eventually, then I came to Southeast Asia and started working in hotels. That was an exciting time because that was the rise of the Asian middle class. So I worked in hotels for a number of years. But I came to Phuket in the year 2000.
But your first country in Asia, it was...
it was actually Thailand.
Thailand, all right? It's Phuket, right?
Correct.
Oh, wow, 1995.
Correct.
How Phuket looks in
1985.
85. How Phuket looks in 1985? Does the bridge exist already?
Much different. No. At that point, the airport was small. It was mainly focused on domestic flights. Certainly in terms of, if you would come through Chirntale, you'd see the water buffalo, you'd see the rice fields. It was a different Phuket. Certainly going down, you'd have to go through Phuket. There was no bypass roads. Mm-hmm. So it was a much smaller place. And, there were, the most popular resorts in those years were probably down south in Rawai, or near the airport.
Yeah, but Phuket started to grow from the Patong, right? Like it was the first tourist destination, right?
To a point, but you also had Rawai, which grew, and then you also had in Nayang. Mm-hmm. What is now the Slate was the Pearl Hotel. Oh. There was a sister hotel in town. Because traditionally for Asians, the Asians would want to live in town. Land prices in town were much more expensive than the beaches. And people would always think, we want to be in town. So you had the Pearl Hotel, which is downtown, which is owned by the owners of the Slate. And that was their preference at that time. But then you started to have the European packaged holidays come up. Certainly the French came in as well, and you had hotels coming up, on the beach areas as well. Patong was growing, but you also had some other elements which were, in those days. Yeah.
Wow. So how foreign tourists looks those days? It was mainly like French or like Eastern, like Europeans, right? Like mainly, or
you had a lot. When I came, there was the Pansy, which then became the Chetty, and then became the Seren, which is next to the Almond Puri. Okay. So that hotel was done by a company called Asia Voyage, who are French. They came to a few locations in Koh Samui and other locations where these were idyllic Southeast Asia locations, Bali as well, and developed small hotels for European tourists to come to these areas. And for them it was magical because they would come during winter, again, once it gets cold in Europe, but they would also have that Asian. So they really were the pioneers in developing that.
Oh, okay.
And I think on the other end, with Patong, then you also had there was Southeast Asia on the book, on a shoestring, which was Lonely Planet, and many people looked at the Lonely Planet guides and came to Asia and went to different locations. And they helped develop early tourism as well, but it was a different kind of tourist who was coming from Europe, who would take longer holidays and come all the way through Asia, different locations, from Vietnam to Malaysia to Indonesia, these countries which were emerging.
As far as I understand, it's back then, Thailand, Malaysia, no, not Malaysia, I think Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, by the level was similar, right? By GDP and by recognize, like international impact. It was similar, right?
In the 80s, don't forget that Vietnam was closed. I actually worked in Vietnam in 1992. I was the first American to work in there post-war Vietnam. And the embargo didn't come off till the mid-90s. So the U.S. embargo, so it wasn't possible to have broad tourism there. Vietnam shut in 1975.
It's still communism, right, or something like this, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that was emerging. But the GDPs were growing, but they were being driven by the middle class. From Malaysia was rising, Indonesia was rising. Singapore certainly was becoming a tiger at that time. But Hong Kong was still much more prevalent in Asia. Not Southeast Asia, but Hong Kong was really the shining star in those years.
Yeah, but if we compare in the touristic areas, right, like mainly Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, we not count. Cambodia, we not count even today. Like it's not really developed yet.
Sure, the big numbers. I mean, you have to also go back when you go back to the Vietnam War, and you think places like Penang in Malaysia, these were R&R centers for American servicemen who were coming from Vietnam, and they started that. So you had a lot of Australians coming first as well who were familiar because they were in the Vietnam War as well. So certainly in the beach resorts in Thailand and Pattaya, at other locations in Thailand, certainly in Bangkok as well, you started to have tourism generate from that. So you had people who were familiar with the locations. But the Europeans certainly put it on. And Thai Airways. Thai Airways in those days had a tie-up with Scandinavian Airlines, and they developed also not only servicing passengers from Europe, but also to Bali. Thai Airways was actually a leading force in developing Bali as a destination because they flew through Bangkok also on to Bali as well. So that's interesting. But these markets were evolving quickly. But it was really Europeans who wanted to come to Asia for the sun, for what their view of these tropical vacations were.
I was really surprised a couple of weeks ago and been in Don Muang Airport, and I read the stories that airport exists 100 years already. Like it's more than 100 years. As the first, it was exactly some military base, in Bangkok, exactly in Don Muang Airport. And I was really surprised that Thai Airlines so long exist, but now it's a big companies and big airports. Thailand expanding so fast.
Sure. I mean, going through Don Muang is always my view of, historically of going through the domestic to the international terminal, that long run of 600, 700 meters, trying to reach planes at that time. But there's a lot of history to Thailand. But Thailand's been, again, it's geography. Geography from Europe, it's able to act as a hub, and it's about seasons and geography, which really make Thailand a special place.
Yeah. So, you start from the beginning doing a consulting business, or you've been in the hotel industry mainly?
I came from the hotel industry, and I worked through hotels as a hotel general manager. I worked as a VP for development. I worked as chief operating officer of a company in Singapore for a public company. But when I came to Thailand, all of a sudden I just, we started learning about real estate. And one of my first jobs here was at Laguna. I worked in Laguna in 2003, and that really was the beginning of a larger property cycle. They tasked me to work to head their property division at that time and start selling houses. That was a boom time.
It was boom time for villas.
It was a boom time for villas because there wasn't much, and it was different than today because we used to go with other developers from Cherntale and from Surin, and we'd go to Hong Kong, we'd go to Singapore and have property shows. We'd go, target the weekends, go into 5-star hotels and start taking the word out. And the Hong Kong economy was extremely strong at that time, as was Singapore. And everybody's view was, do I want to have a vacation home in Thailand? Do I want to have this second home, which maybe I'll retire in as well? But that time it was taking a mission outside. We had a lot of velocity. And I don't think anybody realized how big real estate would be in Phuket until that started happening.
Back then, how people recognize that you need to invest? Who was the first investors who invest in Laguna? Like it was mainly, I think, Hong Kong and Singapore, right?
I'll say Hong Kong. You had people who had business in China, and perhaps they had an Asian wife, so they intended to retire perhaps in Asia. They understood Asia. So they understood what that entailed. They knew what they liked. Living in Hong Kong was cramped, and their view was, again, getting to Phuket wasn't difficult. You had direct flights from Hong Kong, so it was door-to-door travel time. You could come for the weekend. And the one thing is, once one bought, then you had others who buy. There's always one degree of separation between buyers. Once one came, more and more came. But they had values. They understood Asia as well. So again, these were people who started out in China, who made money on the mainland. Even early developers, who later came and did projects. People like Alan Zeman, other developers who had businesses in Hong Kong, came to Phuket and became investors in property development as well.
Yeah, but I think like this is one of the significant change when it's back then Thai developers, they built mainly the shop house development style, right? So Laguna did completely different way in turn to the villas. They seen the market like this, or they think that they will develop this market actually.
Even before Laguna, you had some other developers who were smaller developers. Phuket wasn't on the radar of Thai developers during those years. In the early 2000s, there weren't many Thai developers. They forgot about Phuket. They said, "Oh, those guys down there."
Mainly Pattaya, right? Like or Hua Hin,
Bangkok as well. Bangkok was enough. Bangkok was booming during those years. So you go backwards and look at people who started small villa projects here, and you had a lot of foreigners that came in and co-developed projects. Do
you remember approximate square meter price back then in, let's say, 2000? It's just interesting, like a number. How much square meter price cost?
I mean, per square meter, but an absolute price. When we started the Laguna townhouses, we were selling at 10 to 12 million baht. You were selling the 2-story villas at 18, 19 million baht.
Back then, it was pound was 50 or 60, right? Something like this.
Yeah. There are fluctuations in currency certainly during the times. The currencies moved, a lot over the years. But again, most people were end users. They were here to buy a holiday house. They thought maybe they would retire here. They'd bring their kids here during the time their kids were growing up. So these were the early users. They weren't really necessarily investment buyers. But if you go even further back, you look at the Aman Puri. The Aman Puri was built in 1988. And the reason the Aman Puri was developed was to sell villas to people in Hong Kong and Singapore who wanted a pool villa.
Yeah.
Adrian Zeka and certainly KP Ho later on were the early proponents of pool villas. Nobody had seen that kind of product. If you went to a resort hotel, you had 4 walls and you had a room. All of a sudden, you could imagine that you had your own private pool in a villa on your holiday. Yeah. And that changed things a lot because that really propelled that whole era of new designs, still Asian-based. You'd see the Lana style design, and people still like that. And they got a little bit of Thailand, but they got their own pool, they got their own space. And that became the ultimate luxury.
But back then, it was not that strict restrictions for construction, right? Like same as now. Is it height of building was higher because we have in Patong 3 high towers?
There were some changes over the years, certainly in zoning, where they came back later on and said you're not going to build high rise.
Yeah,
in Phuket. So that was changed over the years. Yeah.
And you've been the witness for the Tom Yum crisis as well, right? Like back then,
we saw all the crises. In 1997, I spent 2 years just firing people, in hotels across, because every country had their meltdowns. The currency was slashed from Hong Kong to Singapore to Thailand, where owners couldn't afford to pay their staff, and the share prices. It was hard to get debt. And the currency would go from 25 to up to 55. And interest rates ballooned, so you didn't have access to anything. Those were tough years.
Yeah, but looks like after those Tom Yum crises, how fast the tourism market recovered?
I'm still personally of the opinion in cycles.
Yeah.
And after the Tom Yum crisis, again, Asia came back quite quickly, and you had the economies which were growing, as well as that. And there was also, in the early 2000s, you also had some issues in Bali. You had the Bali bombings. You had some other issues which pushed people into Thailand as well. Those are very unfortunate incidents, but it also pushed more people to Thailand. They said perhaps Thailand's a safe haven during that time. So there were other external events which also grew.
Yeah.
And then you look at infrastructure as well. I mean, the biggest change in Bangkok, if you go back, was the SkyTrain.
Yeah.
The SkyTrain took tourists off of the river and it moved them from Siloam into Sukhumvit. And the odd thing now, if you look back, all of a sudden in Bangkok, the most expensive hotels in Bangkok now are back on the river.
Yeah.
With the Capella, Mandarin Oriental, and the Four Seasons. So This is how we talk about cycles. Sometimes it goes up, it goes down. So these are the things we saw. But these certainly were the boom periods of most of Southeast Asia.
Yeah. If we look after, let's say, after Tom Yum crisis, there was a crisis of 2008, right?
In between we had SARS. SARS for tourism was an interesting case, and that happened as well. And then the Tom Yum crisis certainly was interesting. But I guess when I look at the 2007, 2008, you can kind of always tell when the market's overheating. Yeah. My indication of when the market's overheating is when people are selling small investment-oriented products which guaranteed returns or things which are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And people are trying to sell anything And you can't just sell anything. These weren't end users. There was so much money in the system, and people just wanted to buy anything without coming and looking or doing anything else. The market was overheated.
In 2008, you mean, right?
2007,
It's
2008.
Yeah. 2008, it's mainly UK buyers was, right? Like it's, I think in Laguna, it was mainly UK buyers around, right? Because pound was so strong back then, right? And and people trying to move their money because the world crisis is booming.
And that happened pretty, don't forget going backwards, we also had the tsunami, in terms of, 2004.
Yeah.
So that was also, it was about a 6-month, impact on the marketplace direct. But there's been a link with tourism. Mm-hmm. When you look at tourism in Phuket, people often come. I came as a tourist first to Phuket, and eventually I bought property. Yeah. So there's that history about generating. Do tourists generate, become real estate buyers?
Back then, you already had the offers that you can buy, right? Like
sure.
Because it was not mainstream, right? That some foreigner buying property in Thailand, right? Back then.
Yeah, that's where people like Laguna came in and started selling other properties. The Sheraton Island Villas, which is the Angsana Hotel, was in the mid '90s. That was one of the first investment-oriented properties after the Amanpuri. To start selling this product, people in 1995 is, what's this product? This is the Sheraton Island Villas. It sold very well. Yeah. And then, of course, the Tom Yum crisis happened.
And it's already was leasehold back then, right? Like because it cannot be freehold as far as I understand, right?
Correct.
It's not a condominium. It's condominium or it's no. It's just apartments, right?
Correct.
Like that's why it was a leasehold. And from those time, set year not passed yet.
Most projects were leasehold also because many projects were developed by foreigners.
Yeah.
And while the Condominium Act was there, people weren't cashed up enough to be able to. Smaller developers couldn't get bank financing.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of people developing smaller projects, which are micro projects, and they couldn't get bank financing. So it's hard to do a condominium because you have a lot of restrictions in terms of that doing. So the evolution of Phuket property was there were Thai developers as well, but there were a lot of foreign developers that came in, did small villa estates, small apartment projects, which were on leasehold because it was easier to do.
Yeah, and even today, I think I'm on the market from 2012, right? And I seen different stages where everyone said we want only freehold, there is no trust to Thai system, let's call it like this, right? But what we've seen today is that it's not a question anymore that leasehold is a difficult ownership, if you compare it to Bali or different region.
Well, not necessarily. I'm going to disagree with you there because I think if you go to Bali, there's not one rule such as different places. When you go and do a registration release in Bali, you go to a local area.
Yeah.
So you go to a municipality of a notary.
Yeah.
And what the notaries will accept is different from notary to notary to notary. It's not straight. It's not black and white.
It's same we have here, Abat or something like this. But
traditionally, but there's still 30 years. This is the law, 30 years. You get a 30-year lease. In Bali, that's not always the case. So you have a lot of variances in how long the leases would be. And foreigners can't own condominiums in Indonesia unless it's going to be in a special economic zone like Bintan or Batam, or whether it's in Bali if you have a residency permit or you have a kitas, which is a work permit.
Yeah.
So they don't have the same things. But I think, leasehold still to me is a vibrant thing here. And we're still seeing people who buy leasehold because after all the shakeout, if you want to own a villa, how else are you going to do it at this point? Whether you're going to lease the land and everything else. And we've seen leases being renewed successfully over time. And will they be going, will we take a 30 to a 50 to a 99? We would hope so, but property is traded. Now, when you go to the property market and see what the variance is, in Bangkok, you have a pricing variable between freehold and leasehold. In Phuket, I think Laguna is now it's about 15%. Where we're seeing that. But traditionally in Phuket, there hasn't been, leasehold and freehold trade on the same value back of demand.
Yeah.
But again, if somebody wants to buy a villa, there's not a lot of options but leasehold.
Yeah, of course. And if you compare it to Bali, even developers in Bali take a land for the leasehold. In Phuket, it's not a common practice actually to do like this.
The only difference in Bali is if you have a multi-million-dollar property, you can own land through a PMA. Mm-hmm. A PMA is 100% foreign ownership. But again, it takes money to run a PMA. It takes paid up capital. So if you have a $5 million villa, you can have 100% foreign ownership through a PMA.
It's not like a common practice for all of the different.
Correct. Only at high value properties.
Yeah, only high value.
Only at high value. You also have, in Indonesia, you've got luxury tax, where the tax rates, any property over $2 million, kicks very high. So different markets, different practices.
Yeah. But still, Bali also, it's one of the biggest competitor to Phuket, but I believe that it's just a different, like a different type of people. Many people tell to me that Phuket is more business-oriented today, more residential.
Phuket's a much bigger property market. I mean, than Bali. You don't have, again, if you go to Cherntale or Bangtao today, you've got 16 to 18,000 residential units. That's the entire Bali property market already.
But island is bigger, actually.
It's bigger, but I mean, Phuket's got about $9 billion of resort-grade real estate. Bali's never been able to sell the big estates. I think it's different because when you start tourism, you have a different profile of people developing hotels in Bali as well, and that attitude, they would prefer not to have residential and sell it, they'd prefer to hold the hotel asset. Where in Thailand, you have other investors who also property groups who want to come and do projects. So, there's no place quite like Phuket. There's not really a competitor. As you come up, I think now probably we'll see Vietnam is creeping into the market and saying what's going to happen to Vietnam with longer-term visas.
Right?
Phu Quoc is good. You're also going into Da Nang and seeing if they're going to allow residency and visas, long-term visas. That's going to certainly be an enhancement for people to go to Vietnam. So it's not all clear sailing for Phuket at this market.
Yeah, we can look at it logically, but what I feel also is that so many people, when they came to Phuket, it's a mix of the numbers, of the feeling, of the vibe, of the Thai traditions, of Thai food and everything. That's why I think people who like Bali, they not much like Phuket, right? People who love Phuket, yes, of course they can go to Bali, but still they come back here. I think depends where you start, right?
We see the same thing between Koh Samui and Phuket.
Yeah.
A Koh Samui property buyer traditionally is not the same buyer as Phuket. They're not going to compare pricing. They're not going to compare other things. I mean, resort real estate's emotional. It's not like if you're buying in an urban condominium, you're saying 100 square meters, I know the price per square meter.
Yep.
The cost of money is this. My yield is this. My return's going to be this, right? In resort real estate, you're going on vacation. Perhaps you're going to have to pay cash for the unit. It's emotional. So it's not somebody who's comparing pricing per square meter.
Yeah.
It's somebody who's saying, I can afford the ultimate price, be it 10 million, 20 million, 30 million baht. But it's what is the value of the property? They're not usually financing it, so they're not looking at the black and white picture of it, saying my appreciation is going to be this. I'm going to exit that.
They just buy it, right?
You also have generational assets. They're going to pass this on to their other family members. They're going to have their children who are going to come here for 10, 20 years.
Maybe sometimes rent it out, right?
Sure.
So it's a kind of mix like this.
But it's without... getting to the point, it's an irrational market.
Yeah,
it's not a rational market. A rational market's when you're looking at yields, these measurements.
You can get some expectations, metrics. Right? And projections, right?
But it's not numbers driven.
Yeah, so but still not too many lands anyway. So you cannot pre-plan how it will be developed. If you don't have master plan in Phuket, right? But in Samui, it's too small.
The first thing we always say is who's your neighbor. It's like anywhere else. When somebody's going to develop something, we say what's next door, what's the surrounding land use. You have to take a view of that, and it's imperfect. But you should always look about is something built next to you. If you're buying into an estate and you're buying a house lot and there's 100 lots, you're going to be in a construction zone for a long, long time. So you have to rationally look at what's next door, what's across the street, do some research. People don't research enough. And you've got to get a view of it. It's imperfect again as well, but it's a good way to start, saying where are things moving? And, for us, Phuket is always moving. Every island moves. You go to Bali the same way. Over the years, growing, Phuket growing from Rawai to Patong, to Katakoron, to Kamala, up to Mai Khao, all of a sudden, Bangtao growing. So there's a growth cycle to all these areas.
Yeah, but we still have quite good amount of lands in Phuket, but we have very interesting situation where we have price for the land almost the same on all of the island. It's what I'm very surprised that you look at, let's say at the Rawai, for example, or Chalon, right? And price for the land very similar to, let's say, Layan, Bangtao, or equal areas. Yeah? But it's a different audience, but how you can feed the economy let's say, if we look at the Boat Avenue, people ready to spend for the breakfast, let's say $15, right? It's a standard. If we go down to Rawai, so then I think exactly the same breakfast you will get for $10, right?
Sure.
Like maybe $8, $7, something like this, right? And so in the end of the day, So it's a different audience, but developers have to keep the square meter price the same because land price is similar. Like it's not the significant change.
Well, it's a driver of highest and best use. But I mean, if you go to Puklok, if you go to Jampa, again, we've seen pricing in Jampa, which a year ago or 2 years ago was sitting at 5 million a baht.
Yeah.
Now it sits anywhere from 7 to 10. But that's
sometimes 15.
Considerably different. Jampa, there's value in that marketplace. Puklok, if we go up by Mission Hills, this area.
That's right now with the new road. I think it's a big potential because of the
land 6 to 8 million. Rye in that area. Again, what people are going to take on. Pricing goes up as the sizing of the plots get lower. So there are some value driven areas. Trentale is certainly much different. Again, the most expensive land in Phuket is Patong.
Yeah, of course.
That's going to continue to be. That's where the high demand is as well. But Trentale, again, it's really becoming such a high if you want to get your money back at this land cost, you have to do real estate. You've got to do a condo. It doesn't make nothing else pencils.
Yeah.
And that's a conundrum because for developers, it also depends who has a land bank and who acquired land perhaps 5 or 10 years ago, what their land cost was. So I think that's interesting. And you also see redevelopment. I think redevelopment's good for areas because you'll see, perhaps in Patong, you'll see shop houses going down.
Like whole beach road right now, it looks like Miami, like you don't have cables around, 5-star hotel slowly developing the front lane, right? So it's not Patong like it's been 10 years ago. It's completely different. Yeah.
I think the new zoning, we'll be watching the new zoning. We had an event last week. We talked about the zoning of being able to build higher in certain areas. And traditionally, as Phuket urbanizes, we think the spine of Tepkasatri Road, which is the north to south artery of the island, will continue to see high land prices. If you go to Bangkok, the areas by the BTS certainly have the highest land prices because that's where the transportation links are. So many people have this erroneous concept that the most expensive appreciation is going to be on beachfront land. There's appreciation, but the fastest growth rates are land inside, off beach properties.
Yeah.
We saw Trentale go from 10 to 20, now to 30, and we see people in back of Boat Avenue, 30 to 50 million a rye.
Yeah. So it's if you calculate, I understand when you have classical tourism and when you have 5-star hotels, it can work pretty well for return of investment, right? With this price of land, but if you not doing a hotel, if you're doing a condos, how you will make your return? It's complicated.
It's almost reversed because for a hotel, it's more sensitive to land cost.
Yeah.
Traditionally, for a good resort to pencil, again, there's no straight model, but you try to get your land cost 10 to 20% of the total project cost. If you're in a city, your land value might be much higher, 50%.
Yeah.
But 10, 20% pencils. The reason we're seeing less hotels being built today and more condominiums are highest and best used is real estate. You need to get as many units, as much saleable GFA on the market.
You can sell it to the customers.
It's not a hotel, because for a hotel, it takes 8 to 10 years to get your money back.
Yeah.
It's a long-term investment. Real estate, you may be out in 3 to 5 years if you're able to sell the product.
But at some point, it's for some people it's a feature, for some people it's a bug. Because most of the people they look at Phuket real estate as one entity. Let's say we buying a real estate, but they don't want to go inside deeper to understand what we are buying: apartment, hotel, commercial, condo, villa. So completely different products. But expertise on the island is not that high, and many people look, okay, I just buy a house,
right?
And I expect that it will be returned like a hotel, right? Or I buy in a townhouse and I expect that it will give me a return same as some commercial. So I think it's an issue because of the not educational, people who is explain the difference, because we're in a touristic area, right? And tourists come fast, 2 weeks, they come in, they make some decision, they just go home, right? And then afterwards they find out, okay, we buy it's a condo or it's a hotel. Right. We don't understand till the end, right? Yeah. So, and looks like at this stage, right now, like you said, it will be almost 20,000 units around on our area around. And of course we expect big challenge for rental market, right? It's like for rental companies and stuff like this. But what I believe that also that we get a lot from different areas in Phuket. So many people that live before, let's say in Katu, so they will have a chance to move somewhere here. Like, and there will be different types of properties. Properties that rented out for tourists for expensive price, right? Because they come and they can rent it because they're on holiday, and people who can stay for long-term contracts as well with all of those, let's say, buildings that 1,000 units, condos and stuff like this. So I see that most of those condos will be mainly for people who live here, right? How do you see it will be competitive? Because
I think we can learn. I think we can learn. We go back to Spain. Marbella, Costa del Sol in the 1990s, they had massive overbuilding, massive oversupply. And eventually the supply was absorbed. It took a long time. But you're correct. I mean, my point of view is not always looking about supply demand in Phuket. What supply? How many people live here? How many people buy here? I mean, the key wild card is how well Phuket will grow.
Yeah.
How many new people will come? It's not just trying to get a metric of saying Phuket has this much growth. It's with what's happening in the world, how many more people will come to live in Phuket.
Yeah.
Thailand continues with their visas. You've got Thailand Elite, 5, 10, 15-year visas. You've got the retirement visas. You've got the
LTR.
The Guardian visas for the international schools. So you have a lot of different things. So I think it's a view that Phuket will become urbanized. You'll have more people who come to live, but you're quite right. It can't be generating only on vacation rentals. It's not a healthy thing, to imagine that's going to happen. So the market will be absorbed as Phuket grows, but not for tourism numbers. Phuket grows as a population base for full and part-time residents. There's still a lot of time, snowbirds. Every time it's going to start snowing in Europe in October, November, getting cold, people will come here. It's not only Eastern Europe, it's Scandinavia, it's other parts of Europe as well, and they will come here every year. That's part of the beauty of Phuket is
same as summer for
the
Arabic, right, or Middle East, right?
And they're happy to come here because they can see the rain. I mean, if you've ever been to August and 50-degree weather, in the Middle East, be blasted by sand. You want to come and see rain. You want to see something else. So I think the metric, it will take, there's tremendous supply challenges right now. That's without a doubt. Good developers will do better. Bad developers will fail.
Yeah.
They won't fail, but they won't move product. So I think that's going to be the challenge for the marketplace now. But again, is Phuket going to grow, and how is Phuket going to grow and manage that urbanization?
Yeah. Like when I look what's going on around, that's what I'm trying to explain myself. What's supposed to happen that Phuket fail? What's supposed to happen? If we look at the location, right? Amazing place with international airport, too many flights, easy to come here, beautiful beaches, right? All of the West Coast is amazing. It's like of course, the quality of those beaches you can get if you go to, let's say, some small islands. Right, but there's no infrastructure that people want today. Let's say when we speak about generation of millennials, let's say for them, yes, luxury is important, but not that much. But if we speak about Zoomers, let's say for them, they need only infrastructure. They need shopping malls. They need to have as much possible activities. They stay in the small rooms, but they get mainly outside. They not stay in the room. Back then, it was popular to have big rooms, right? So today, for those generations, they feel pretty comfortable. Sure. And in terms of product, what I see in Phuket, we still developers not kind of make some identity of audience. Everyone want to take everyone. Every hotel want to get everyone. There's no a product for special type of audience. That's what we actually doing. We are more focused on young generation because they understand our company code and our vision, right? But most of the time, there's not much vision, it's just another hotel, it's just another condo, right? And there's no real, involvement for the people who wanna feel good at this place. But I believe that when we get some vision, so people all over the world will come for this vision, specifically in Phuket, which is they don't have anything to go there, for example, for them. That's why they believe, okay, there's only tourists that want to go to Bangla. Because still many people believe that Phuket is Patong.
Sure. I still think, when you say Phuket failing, and I think Phuket's failing is not a, there's always, what does Phuket failing mean? Does that mean a bubble? Let's deal with a bubble first. What's a property bubble? A bubble by nature is also going to be when something is popped, you're going to have prices fall. You're going to have prices collapse.
But we still not at the top, right?
Well, I think the issue is that this is a totally unique property market because it's a cash market.
Cash market.
You don't have people who have leveraged. You don't have large amounts of bank financing. People aren't going to cash out on a wholesale basis. You have a lot of end users. I mean, never get property, again, Phuket's not an extraordinary place in the world in terms of, it does follow other cycles. And who in the U.S. would have believed subprime? The belief was property would never go down. And property all of a sudden went down in the U.S. during subprime. Right now, Phuket, in the U.S. or Europe, there are property markets which are declining because pricing is too expensive. So you look at that and you're saying, our market's volatile. What it says is, no matter where you're investing in property, there's volatility. So you have to take a box and tick that box and say, what volatility can I take? And I think something, if you're comparing prices in, global playgrounds, Dubai, Marbella, Miami, compared to Phuket, it's a relatively low value to buy property here. So I think that has a lot of things. If your acquisition price is low. But the one thing we always tell property buyers now in these days is be a long-term player. If you're looking to get in short and get out short, and you're premising your investment on a very set period of time, there is a lot of volatility out there. But it is cyclical as well. We've seen Phuket cyclical with tourism over the years. When we go back after 2007, 2008, we've had ups and downs. We had a surge in the Eastern European market. We had a surge in the Chinese market with these things as well. Now we're seeing coming out of COVID, there was so much demand. And we saw that in hotels. We've seen it in real estate. Prices went up, prices went up, prices went up. Nothing goes up in straight lines forever. So having a correction is not necessarily a bad thing.
It's healthy sin, actually.
It's a healthy thing, but you will, so I think, saying what will fail, there's risk. Certainly there's risk. Some people will not choose to live in Phuket the more it grows. You'll have people say, I don't want to live here because it's too expensive or someplace else. Maybe they'll go to Khao Lak, maybe they'll go to Chiang Mai, maybe they'll go to other areas, or they'll go to Vietnam. So you'll lose something. But I think you have to look at Phuket as a global destination. Its power to attract. You have people moving out of North America, certainly now, in terms of who are retiring, who have, or perhaps they don't, this on either side of the political spectrum. Interesting talking to North Americans because, you have people on both sides saying, I want to get out or I want to move elsewhere to seize things. So we see people moving it back into Asia from those areas as well. You also have this multicultural society where you see people who are married to Asians or married to Thais and say, I want to come here. I understand I understand the area and I understand the culture. Yeah. That multiculturalism is important with Thailand. I think that's what attracts people to the country because they're accepted. It's an easy place to live, and people like Thai food. They like the brand. And I think that's interesting. But we're not without challenges. I want to go back and say Thailand has everything because we're facing infrastructure challenges. We're facing difficulties, but no worse than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And in a world which has a virtual shitstorm of things going around the world right now, Phuket does remain a safe haven, for these type of areas. So I think that's a strong fundamental. When you're saying what would fail, I think it won't fail. It's a matter of having some bumps in the road.
Yeah. Like it's when we look what's going on today. Of course, some people live in Phuket. New people always come. New blood come. And what we see after COVID, it's very interesting. A lot of entrepreneurs come to Phuket and bring a lot of new energy and new vision, new businesses, and this works completely different because before COVID, most of the people actually been in tourist industry only. Yeah. It's either hotels or
they're retired.
Or retired. Yeah, two type of people, like who went here. Today, entrepreneurs here in Phuket is quite big culture, right? Yeah. Even both avenue, if you look right now.
You have younger and you have older, which is good. There's a healthy mix. Plus, we've got 13 international schools. So you have kids eventually who will grow up here and go to international schools will want to come back.
Yeah.
You're planting the seeds of people to come back. And there are still kids. I have friends whose kids grew up here who went overseas to attend university and want to come back to Phuket and start a business, start something else. So, that's one thing we know with digital nomads or with entrepreneurs today is, when you have the millennials, they want to start businesses earlier. I've got people who've worked for me who say, I'm leaving this job because I want to try, because if I don't try now, I'm never going to do it. So that's going to really set the future of Phuket in terms of attracting lifestyle. I go the same thing in Indonesia. We do a lot of work in Jakarta, and say, I want to move in Bali. They're so happy to come to Bali for a project meeting and saying, it's so nicer. I don't have to sit in traffic for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So while we have traffic, growing traffic in Phuket, it's still much worse in Bangkok. It's much worse in CBD areas. So that's part and parcel of living in a big city.
Yeah, of course. The people, we're too spoiled of beautiful place.
Sure.
That's why we believe that if you stay 30 minutes in some traffic, it's end of the world. But in reality, Phuket, at some point, it's all of the issues been fixed. Most of the people 10 years ago told me that, you know what, in Naiharn area in Ravai, it will be full of traffic because about 15,000 units being built. There are so many projects. And it's been built, and the actual traffic being connected to everything. Everything is good right now.
Yeah.
Like it's not same with Chental right now. Of course, a lot of construction, a lot of trucks around. Like a lot of roads closing and stuff like this. That's why, of course, government. The interesting thing that in Thailand everything goes not from master plan. It goes from the entrepreneurs. Who like from the people start to build something, and then around infrastructure start building, not from the plan. Same as in Bangkok. In Bangkok you can have a sky tower, and next is mama noodles, and people feel this code comfortable. But in Phuket, is right now it's more and more. I would say good quality service. People not really want. You can get these mama noodles for 60 baht or 50 baht, but on the other side you can get whenever steak or whenever food. Like if you want American, Middle East, Indian, whenever food you can find, and for whenever pocket. Like you have a choice. I believe that all of those areas around Phuket will be like a hub, right? And all of these places around, like Khao Lak, or for example, Panga, Krabi, it's more satellites. It's still, most of the hype is here because of it's very well promoted, I think.
I think there are some areas in Phang Nga. I'm pretty positive on Khao Lak simply because land price.
Yeah.
If I go to Khao Lak and I'm buying land at if I can buy a house lot for $3 million.
Yeah.
2 million, 3 million, build a house there as a retirement house. Good. It's a different experience. I think eventually bizarrely, you'll see Krabi and Khao Lak certainly growing in proximity for people to have holiday houses from Phuket.
Yeah.
They want to take their family and go to the beach or something else. It's an urbanization thing where people want to be door-to-door travel time, an hour. You've got a 4-lane highway. So I think there are opportunities in that market. But certainly Phuket is the epicenter. But I mean, I came in 2000. There was one traffic. I lived in Rawai, and there was one traffic light. Yeah. I would have to pass going to the airport at that time. Yeah. But at the same time, I couldn't have, if I wanted to have a cafe latte, I'm not going to get it. There was one place where we could have, certain food. There was only Robinsons where you could get things at the marketplace. You were, when it was Thanksgiving, trying to buy a turkey or something like this, it was difficult to buy. So we are advantaged by having good medical care, by having good services, by having people like Central who have been very aggressive and having a lot of retail opportunities. So again, it's a global destination. There's that support. That's one thing about Phuket is you have a support system. Yeah. For whether you're buying a car and you want servicing of that car, or in terms of medical technology, in terms of school education things, you have access to things you would in other places around the world.
Yeah. Last week, my cousin went from Dominican Republic, right? And she said, "Wow, it's I cannot believe it's Southeast Asia." Sure. Because safety level is super high comparing to Dominican Republic. Sure. If you stay in super expensive estate, right? Yeah. Like Laguna, but Laguna, I don't remember, Casa del something, right. So when you get out from there, it's completely different. It's like a two different world. In Phuket, it's pretty safe, and statistics is.
I think generally in Asia, people always laugh at them. I'm from Los Angeles. I feel more at risk. I'm in Asia. Again, in 1985, I feel, and then people say, "Oh, you're going to countries. How you feel at risk? Is it dangerous?" I say, I feel more dangerous going into LA, going into Walmart. Being worried somebody's going to. Usually that crime happens here, usually for a reason or something else. But in terms of our perspective, is compared to other places in the globe, we're very lucky. At this point to have a relatively, it's not crime-free, but to have a relatively safe place to live.
Statistically, statistics is pretty low. Yeah.
I think it's more dangerous to swim here sometimes, having lifeguards and things like that. We certainly lose more people than from crime. So
yeah. So also I want to ask you about other destinations, like what C9 Hotelworks is doing right now. As far as I understand, you work in 12 countries, right?
We work all across Asia Pacific. So our footprint is Asia Pacific and Indian Ocean. So we've, this year we've worked as far as Kenya. We've done work in, last year we worked in Rwanda. We've done work certainly in Mauritius, Seychelles, Sri Lanka. We do a lot of work in Japan. certainly in the resort markets, Niseko.
Which part of Japan is popular right now?
Niseko certainly is for real estate. Hakuba as well. We do some work in Tokyo. South Korea we're working in at the moment. We've done some work in Australia this year. I'm going to Fiji next month. For that product. So we, again, that's why they have airplanes. So we're only 9 people, but we do a lot of work.
As far as I understand, you mainly consult for hotel.
We do hotel. We do branded residences. I think our branded residences business is bigger than anybody in Southeast Asia, at least, as consulting. And we also work on some.
So you connect
luxury real estate. We come in and do market research. Somebody has land and say, what do I do with my land? What's the highest and best use? What's my vision? They may have an architect, maybe they're not at that point. We help them through that. So again, we do a lot of mixed use projects where there's different components. It might be a hotel. There might be other components like, from a resort, is there real estate? Is there commercial? Is there a school? Is there an amusement park or something else? So yeah, a lot of that.
So what is I think maybe it's a political question, but I still want to ask it. What is a brand is most popular right now in Southeast Asia in terms of branded residence or hotel? I think you deal with many, but if you take a top 5, let's say branded residence or hotel right now, which brands is take most of the power?
I think there's always the gold standard. There's always the gold standard, which is Aman, which manages to sell wherever they go. I think certainly in terms of, Four Seasons is quite a well-defined brand in terms of what they've done, and they manage properties globally. It's a trusted brand as well. Certainly Marriott. We see what Marriott in terms of, they have a lot of different brands doing branded residences, whether it's from St. Regis to Ritz-Carlton. They've got a big brand stable, and they're doing that in a very attractive way. We look here, certainly people like Banyan Tree as well. Banyan Tree is doing a lot of projects around the globe with their branded residences. So you have a lot of chains, but certainly at that top level, when you say, what is that gold or platinum standard? You've got Aman, you've got Four Seasons, and then if you're looking for a bigger chain, probably Marriott for us would have, the biggest concentration of new branded projects at a high level.
Yeah. In your vision, what is most important key points that you need to look in the hotels? When it's a service, right? Yeah. Like a festival, right? It's not about property per se. It's about how people host hospitality part, right? Or how do you see?
I think that's an interesting question. But also when we're going back, we're also seeing other people come into branded residences. We see Nobu coming in. We see Armani. We've got Fendi, we've got other high-end luxury brands. That's interesting to me because when you're buying a branded residency, you're buying a brand. And the one thing fashion brands offer something which they can offer one of a kind.
Okay.
When you're going to have a launch at a Louis Vuitton shop, they have special products for their special customers. Hotels can't do that per se. They're more of a commodity. And the luxury fashion brands can do that. So they're interesting to me how they're going to influence the market. Perhaps not when you're buying a managed residence, but when you're buying a branded residence and you're buying that brand, the things they can do is very, very, very interesting for me. So I think that's another component of branded residences, which are going to be the fashion brands. We talk about service. Again, there's branded residences where you're buying a villa and saying, I don't mind what's outside my villa. I'm buying this. I'm buying what the interior is and everything else. If I'm buying in a complex, certainly having a high level of concierge, having a high level of services, no matter what you have, it's not about the smartphone. Somebody who's very, very rich wants to pick up the phone and say, I want this.
Yeah.
It's that human contact. They want these services. They want it quick. It's about the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing we know about branded real estate is too often developers forget that you need to engage your customers when you sell the unit. You've got the person who sells it, then you've got the operator. And sometimes people forget about that. What happens for the 2 to 3 years when you're waiting for your unit? And we're seeing hotel companies now say we're engaging them with the brand, we're engaging them with the services, with loyalty, through their loyalty card as well. But it's about having that relationship with the customer as well, and engagement early on. But without a doubt, the very, very rich want personalized service. They want that relationship.
Yeah. I see. And in this case, people not really have much expectations from the basic rentals. It's mainly the main capital growth is on the main return. It's from your asset growing in the price, right?
It's capital appreciation.
Yeah, capital appreciation.
But no matter how rich you are, you still don't want to pay a lot of maintenance fees. So they still want to cover their costs. So when we see somebody else, realistically, people come to, it's okay for a big villa to say, I'm going to be occupied 20, 30% of the year during peak season.
Yeah.
Because that covers their cost.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to dip into their pocket. and say, I'm going to have these enormous fees and no way out. No matter how rich you are, there's still that one. So again, getting those returns and covering your cost is prime, but certainly it's a long game.
Yeah.
It's a long game about saying, maybe I want to see capital appreciation exiting in 10 years. You have a cycle towards the big villas when people have their children grow up and say later on, we want to downsize. So perhaps they don't want the big villa, 15 years later. So they exit the investment.
Yeah. As our podcast also not only about real estate, also we are IT oriented, and most of the business that I'm doing, it's mainly like IT oriented business, even with marketing, with our solutions that we do. What do you think about AI today? Because for past few years, its world is changing, like in our habits and everything. How you, the person with that much experience, did you digitalize your own knowledge to some AI system?
Sure.
It's interesting.
It's a crutch. You have to be careful with it because you look at you say what is real and what's not. And when you read, I can kind of start reading things. I know it's AI generated in format and context. I know how people speak.
Yeah,
I think sometimes it doesn't adapt to the language how people speak. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. There's a lot of things you can consolidate out there. I mean, AI is going to be much bigger than when you look at the internet changed the world, AI will change it 100 times more. Because AI starts thinking for itself. It has much more potential than the internet ever did. So it has incredible power, but I don't think we know how it's going to end up. I think as a crutch at work and everything else, it's still about human contact. And I think the one thing is for that sales pitch, I get on an airplane as much as I have ever.
Yeah.
I travel and people still want to go face to face. But to get to that meeting, I need to go through things that AI can help me with. And I think there's certainly from a perspective of how I use the AI and how I tell my team there's learnings there to produce certain things which are menial or repetitive. There's a lot to be done, but it's very much a work in progress.
Yeah, in reality, it's not much about communication between people. I think that AI is good to use it inside of some calculations or statistics and so on. Sure. Because in Phuket right now, we start to get more and more data that we never had before. Because even right now, with all of those developers that bring a lot of new units on the market, right? Unless it will be registered, we will not see the real picture, right? Unless it will be complete, right? And AI right now help a lot to digitalize. Let's say we put all of the price lists from different developers, sure. And we can see how the reality change in real time. So that's why it's very interesting time. And do you use any AI special solutions?
You can still look at it, but the one thing you don't know is what's the difference between the asking price and the trading price.
Yeah, of course.
So there's always plus minus to that. We use certain solutions. We look at a lot of data. We rely on interviews, and I think our research also matters because we want to know it's easy to look at numbers. And say what's beyond the number, what's the opportunity. If I only look at numbers, I'm blinded.
Yeah,
because I'm going to look at the numbers, I'm going to get confused. If I'm a developer, we always tell developers one thing: do something separate. Be brave. Be bold. If you only follow the numbers, the data from AI, you'd never do anything different.
Of course.
You're not going to innovate. You're going to do. It's good to substantiate your model and understand what the realistic things are out there. But I think you have to be brave to be developing new concepts, new things. And in a crowded marketplace, you've got to do something different. Otherwise, we always use Punis as a model. I'd always talk about that because we had them in our event this week, and I say that a buyer 10 or 20 years ago in Phuket didn't matter with their villa. I'll take real estate. I'll go to Chatterjack and buy some things. I maybe have $1 million villa, but I'm going to put crappy artwork up. Now values have changed. The customer has changed. And they're tech focused. They're focused on good food. They're focused on design.
Experiences,
So I think interior design will change products on this island. Branding will change these things. People want something a little better. They want to see different products, and they want to see different feels to it. And they also like the person. When I look at that, and I'm just using one isolated case of Vanessa. They talk to Mary, who's a developer, and they say she's the designer. They feel good about it. Why did you buy in that project? I think that's the connection which developers sometimes have to understand is what's that connection from a salesperson or from a designer and what clicks and why are they buying a product? It's not just price. There's a lot of product in the marketplace and you can always pay, when everybody's competing with, I'll give you more commission, I'll give you more commission, I'll give you more connection. But what actually got that person over the line is an intangible, which sometimes is that connection, it's that design, it's that person, it's not just location, the four walls, bricks and mortar, it goes beyond that.
Yeah, and in reality, what we're trying to use right now, also a lot of solutions for construction as well, with AI and with the management, because this is one of the most difficult part in Thailand, because we have some kind of, like many people who just came here, new companies, they have their visions that everything's supposed to be same as in their own country, right? Which is in Thailand, we live in reality, which is Thai mentality needs to grow to that level as well. It slowly happened, we see that better and better and better, right, in terms of standards, in terms of quality, but it's impossible to change it too fast, right? And how I always try to think like, what's the really real business if you want to make successful business in Thailand? I believe that you need to be this kind of in the middle between Western world and Thai world and make this kind of match, balance it, like it cannot be a radical way to do. We do only Western style, right? Or we do, Map and Lie, we do Thai style. And that's why I think that's how whole island gets in better, and all of the businesses around as well. And in terms of product, with the strategy, one of the interesting things that today many projects, they just come, we want to build something. Like something, those guys did it, we will do as well, right? Yeah. I think that it's have to be a little bit of pre-planning of what's going on in future, right? And I think you are helping for those developers as well, right?
We're trying to work with developers. We want to work with an idea. What's that idea? How do you develop something and be the best in class?
Yeah.
And there's again, you have to be brave because not everything is going to work. I mean, I've had failures, and I built things which I was saying, why did we go that way? But you learn from that, and you do. But it's as long as you have more successes than failures.
Yeah.
That's important. But to develop great projects, it doesn't come from an art. It comes from a developer being brave and having a vision and being dogmatic.
Yeah.
And being pure to that concept. That's how you're going to be successful. Yeah.
I believe you even if it's a successful company somewhere on other country, when you come to Phuket, you reset. You start from scratch.
And it's not just being collaborative. It's nice to be collaborative, but it's sometimes you've got to daddy up. Somebody has to make a decision and say, this is the way it's going to be. And we're going to see it through. And I think that's the most important thing. So
we can put some link under this video for your consultant, right? So then the people can contact your team in terms of if we have some new developers. So who's supposed to contact you? What is your audience after this video?
Our audience are real estate developers, somebody who wants to build a hotel, wants to be a developer, wants insights into the industry. That's who our audience is.
Perfect. We will put the link under this video, and you can click on it, and we will connect you to Bill's team. It's really good conversation. I don't want to stop, but I think we speak almost an hour right now, right? And I think the people will appreciate. We can do another podcast about more specific topic, but usually on the last as a last question, I ask my guest a little bit about the future, right? Let's imagine, how do you see Phuket in 2035? In 10 years, what is your vision? How island will look with all of these dramatic changes?
I think you'll see an urbanized pattern. You'll see mini metros. We go back to the 15-minute rule. People will want to live in a neighborhood and be close to where they live. Their house will be close to where they're doing business or where they're going to school or these kind of things. It's an urbanizing city. You'll have a pattern moving north. You'll see more things going north. You'll see certainly when we go up by Blue Canyon, this area being developed, you'll think continue to push. Where's there's open land now will be filled out. People will fill out the blanks. You'll see the East Coast continue to develop, and you'll have a different Phuket because you'll have many metros. We talk to Phuket, we'll talk about these inland. I think inland will continue to be defined by infrastructure. I think that's the biggest change in the island when you have more, whether you have an expressway or whether you have a train coming through or whatever you have, that will define the island. Infrastructure growth will change. Around the circumference of the island, that won't change that much because you're not going to be able to build big infrastructure. Big infrastructure come down the middle of the island, and that will push people inland, and you'll have more of a traditional city-like approach to Phuket. And you'll have these little areas where people live and come, but they'll be drawn to the middle as well. So I think that's going to be the big changes. I think the attraction of Phuket will continue. I think it's not for everybody. I think some people will say they want to be here, they want to raise their kids, they move in, they move out. I think you'll have people trading within real estate saying, I own a villa, I want to own a condo now, I want a bigger and different kind of thing. You'll see people who move into Krabi, or they'll move into Phang Nga Bay, or they'll move into Khao Lak as well, and use Phuket as a base of services. So I think certainly having these world-class areas as well with medical services and everything else, I think people do want more. People still want public areas. They want parks. They want to walk. I think that's the one thing missing when we see developers today. People want to go out and take a walk. People who've lived in Europe or something else, they like to walk every day. It's not that safe to walk in Phuket roads. So I think there are gaps in the marketplace, not just within a master plan development, but just for green areas and parks for Thais. Again, Thais live here. They do the services. They have to be happy. The level of happiness sitting in traffic every day is not high for Thais right now. And they say, what do you have? So there has to be developers saying, we're going to give you municipal parks. We're going to have green areas. We're going to have well-being. We're going to have a better lifestyle. I think that's why people want to live in Phuket, is to have a better lifestyle. At the end of the day, quality of life should be defining it. And hopefully we see more developers doing that. So that's my wish. But I think Phuket will continue to urbanize. Sure.
Yeah, but still we'll have beautiful nature as well. Sure. As it will be urbanized with the nature.
Go look at Google Earth, Phuket. People tell me Phuket's overbuilt. Phuket's overbuilt. At least half of Phuket you'll look at green areas when you look at Google Earth.
Yeah. Awesome. I think it's a great. It was a great podcast. Okay. Thank you so much for your visit. Okay. Maybe you want to say something to our subscribers. And
I think it's good. I think it's good what you're doing, because you're talking and giving more insights. I think any buyers who come to Phuket, or any people want to rent, I say, come to Phuket, rent. Come to Phuket, learn where you want to live, what your friends are going to be doing. Come and try it out. Take a journey. It's not just coming and buying something and leaving. Do some research, talk to people, but come also and experience it too. What area do you like? Phuket has different areas, has different vibes. Find something that matches what you're doing. So what you guys are doing with the podcast and providing more information for buyers, it's a really good thing, because make informed decisions. Don't come and buy something quickly and say, oh, what went wrong? Okay.
Yeah.
That's our best advice. So
thank you so much. And thank you for doing this promotion of all of the Phuket around the world. Sure. It's very important, and with all of your events, and we are super happy to always visit it.
Okay, thanks
thank
for
you so
having me.
Much. Thank you so much. Take care. Yeah.